app live in visual form, where you can see our guests who we desperately missed last week. Twitch, YouTube, and Trysta Krick. What's up, homie?
I desperately miss you guys too. I'm gonna say that. I always miss you guys. I canceled every other hit, but y'all today.
We almost canceled last week's show when you said I can't make it tomorrow. We were almost like, you know what? If we can't do it, then we're not going to do it. Our bosses didn't see it the same way, so we came to work. But that was our opinion. That was our opinion. We're obviously today's a huge day in the NBA with the draft. We're finding comps to Victor Wembanyama across sports,
because did you see what Woj said about him being the best prospect in the history of team sports? So that's kind of where it came from. But like you said, we're trying to figure out somebody, and I honestly, Damian, we're talking about like hype. I don't know if any of these people that we've talked about are as much of a sure thing as we think Victor Wembanyama is.
What about
maybe that's where Woj, that's essentially what he's talking about, and he may be right.
Did you guys bring up Bo Jackson?
No.
Because he had a lot of hype, and obviously he delivered multiple sports. Just like the amount of press and excitement around him was historic.
But see, I think you're younger than me, but I didn't live through it. Like I don't know. I don't know what that was like. So that's probably why Bo didn't come to our mind. But
it feels like LeBron is the only true like comp. And then I actually do, and I can't believe this like slipped our mind for so long, given how recent it was. Trevor Lawrence is probably the other.
I got one. How about this one? Herschel Walker.
Yeah, it's the same before my time.
Yeah, before my time, but they traded like
everything.
Like
he played in another pro league.
They did that for Ricky Williams.
They did, and Ricky Williams, that's true. But I lived through Ricky Williams. I lived through Herschel Walker too, but I was like 8 or 7 or something.
I don't think that the hype around Victor Wembanyama is as much as LeBron, just because I think you mentioned Kenny earlier. Listened to a little bit of the show right before I came on. It's like LeBron was here. You know, you got to watch all of his games and get the hype. People went to his games locally right here. He was this country's greatest athlete, you know, the second coming of, you know, whatever, Jordan. And he was on, you know, the front cover of magazines and SI. And I actually think LeBron's hype coming into the league was actually much higher than Jordan's hype. Jordan, there was still a lot of speculation about whether he was going to be worth, you know, what he was. I was actually looking at an old magazine that I picked up from eBay that was comparing him to Dr. J and whether he could be the next Dr. J. So what, eBay?
I'd love that you bought a magazine off of eBay. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to visually react to that the way that I did.
He's going to get it. It's probably the Sporting News.
Oh, it's the Sporting News. The next Dr. J. That's incredible. I have to ask. It's impolite. Right there. How much did that cost?
It wasn't a lot. I think it was like maybe $85, $100, something like that.
Wow, we have very different opinions about what is a lot and what is not.
Well, I mean, like in terms of it being a collectible, you know?
That is an all-timer. I mean, you framing that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
That's kind of dope. Yeah, that's kind of dope.
I think what's cool is they talked about just like in here, they framed it in a way where it was like he's just still someone that we're not sure about. Like questions are abound for the rest of the rookies. So Melvin Turpin was talked about.
Melvin Turpin.
That's
right. Yeah. Was he big enough for you?
I always talk about this with Mike, and the way Damian's probably tired of me talking about it because I say it all the time, but I'm just amazed and try to take myself back in that time. He moved like nobody else on the earth when he played. Like that's why people looked at him like an alien and just looked at him like a god. Like, oh my God. Like we see it every night now in the NBA, but he played.
He was the first
in 87, like everybody plays tonight, as far as the way he jumped, the way he moved, his acrobatic nature, his explosiveness. And they were probably like,
Like, what is this?
It's Jesus. He's come back in basketball form. Like it's. I try to take myself back to that time.
And mind you, this was after Dr. J, who they were mesmerized by.
Right. And he was like 2 times Dr. J. It's crazy.
So tonight's the night where Portland's fate changes forever, as you guys know, since we're getting Victor Wembanyama.
Well, I mean, I can't say I hope it happens. If it happens for you, I'd be happy about that. But he's still in the Western Conference. I want him out of the Western Conference.
We looked at the teams in the lottery and figured like half of them could potentially be a top 4 team in their conference if they landed the number 1 pick.
Who did you guys arrive on?
Well, I mean, the one that I'm convinced is going to happen is Indiana. I'm convinced he's going to go to Indiana, and it's going to be tied to the trade with the Kings. And somehow the Kings, the narrative in 10 years is going to be the Kings passed on Victor Wembanyama. I don't know how it's going to get there, but I feel like it's going to get there at some point. But I think the Pacers, who were obviously, I thought they were clearly good when Tyrese Halliburton was playing. You add Victor Wembanyama to that. I don't think anybody sees Victor Wembanyama as a long-term project. Like, he's going to be ready to play basketball when he steps on the floor in October. Dallas is another team. Oklahoma City.
I said Charlotte. That's my pick. I picked Charlotte getting it.
You want him going to that dysfunction?
I don't want him going. First of all, once again, I want him out of the Western Conference. There's that. And I don't really want him to go to Detroit. Don't want him to go to Indiana. What's left for me is Charlotte. So there's that. I do want him to play with LaMelo. I hope Mike keeps the team. And then I don't really care, so to speak. I just got a feeling it'll be Charlotte. Just a gut feeling.
Just a gut feeling.
Yeah.
They'd probably pass on him because that's what Michael Jordan does.
Man.
We'll not allow that on this show. This is a Michael Jordan show. We will not allow anything but good things to be said.
That's Michael Jordan,
about
the player,
Michael
and
Jordan.
Michael Jordan, the shoe distributor.
I
haven't watched Air yet. Has anyone?
Oh, it's so good.
Everybody says it's. Like
it's on Amazon. I just haven't watched it yet.
It's like
no. It's like it airs on Amazon.
If I got Prime, watch it.
Yes.
Oh man.
I just haven't. I meant to get to it last night, but I didn't watch anything.
I might watch that tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry, Back to the Future.
Damn shame. So obviously the lotteries tonight. This might be the longest hit ever because there's just so much to talk about. I don't know if you have.
I'm not working tonight, so
good because we just might be here for the next 2 hours. Doc, let's start with Doc in Philly. Doc Rivers fired today. Harden sucks again in a game 7. Joel catching massive heat. Where are we at with the 76ers? Firing Doc Rivers, fair or foul?
I mean, I think it's fair considering how many leads he's given up in the history of his career. I think you're looking at this firing not in terms of how well he did in this particular postseason, but what his ceiling is with this squad, right? And if you want to try to lure James Harden back to Philly, if you're Daryl Morey, then you have to at least consider Harden's opinion, right? And Harden is very clearly sort of intimating that him and Doc are just okay. So I think that the Doc Rivers firing has been, I think probably a couple years too late. I think maybe when he threw Ben Simmons under the bus and he was not taking any accountability 2 seasons ago in the postseason, I think that's probably when the call should have been made. So I am not tripping off of Doc Rivers getting fired. This team is a mess, though. You're paying Tobias Harris a lot of money, and he's not that good. Embiid has never been healthy in a postseason in his entire career, spanning back to 2018. He's literally had multiple orbital bone fractures, knee injuries, foot injuries, ankle injuries. So that's just kind of par for the course where we're like, oh, well, we can't really judge Joel Embiid in the postseason because he's not really healthy. But that's who he is in the postseason. So we kind of have to judge him based on that. And he's the only trade chip that you have. So you have to determine, are you starting again? Are you going to try to figure out a way to bring somebody around him? Who is that? It's kind of a mess. The East was wide open for them this year. they had Boston on the ropes, and they blew it.
I said after the game, Trysta, I said, if you're Philly, everything's got to be on the table. And that includes trading Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
And it's because I don't look at it like it's his fault or anything, but this is over. Like this Sixers group, this whole era, this is over. Like they're never getting any further than the second round with this group. So you got to look at it like, okay, if you're the owner and you want to just keep getting the revenue from, first, second round playoffs, that's cool. I understand that it's a business, but just know that's what it is. If you want more, you have to look at doing something with this roster. And there's really only two tradable assets.
Maxey and Embiid.
Joel and Maxey.
Yeah.
And even if you trade Maxey, like you're not going to get, I don't believe, like, I don't think you're getting Dame for Maxey. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to get somebody that's going to take you to another level. So what do you do at that point? In my opinion, you look to move on from Joel. Now, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying like that has to be a conversation.
Yeah, an option to explore.
I don't think you're surprised by this because you were one of the first people who brought up Monty Williams being fired. What's the future of Phoenix? Doc Rivers?
Yeah, it kind of feels like playoff caliber coach musical chairs, right? Like all of these coaches that were in the playoffs playing one another are essentially just swapping seats based on where the roster is at and what you need from that coach. So like Monty Williams, we know what he is, which is a great culture builder. And so he's somebody that isn't great in terms of like in-game adjustments, isn't great in terms of game-to-game adjustments. He really struggled in that Dallas series. He struggled last series. So I'm not surprised. But I think the thing that people aren't talking about enough, and it hasn't been publicized really at all, is that Monty Williams was rubbing players the wrong way at the end of his time. And that Monty Williams is seen as a really nice guy, but that there's another side to him that clearly has bothered DeAndre Ayton to the point where it was beyond repair. And Matt Ishbia came in and didn't really vibe with him either. So there's some element of personality conflict that was present, in addition to the fact that you have made some mistakes along the way where, like, it's bad when you get outcoached by Mike Budenholzer. Like, that's just kind of telling in terms of, like, where we're at in the coaching hierarchy.
You took 2 shots at fired coaches in that one statement. Because that was a shot at Budenholzer.
It was. And he lost 4 straight to the Bucks. He lost 4 straight to the Bucks when I think the Bucks had a legit shot of, winning that series. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna hold that one against them. I'm not gonna hold that one against them. There's no way they should have lost to Dallas. There's no way they should have lost that series.
And in the way that they lost to Dallas, where you got guys not even trying for you. DeAndre Ayton in both of those games was not present, right? DeAndre Ayton in game 7 against Dallas was on the floor, but very clearly not engaged or locked in. And then in the other game against Denver, Phoenix essentially, like, DeAndre Ayton was like, I'm just not even going to suit up. Like, I got my neck, my back.
I don't think he should have been fired, and I wouldn't have fired him then. I don't think he should have been fired at all. But you can make the argument he probably could have got fired after that Dallas game 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, losing that series and then losing game 7 the way you did, we've seen people fired for
losing by that much is in the NBA is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's legitimately tough. Losing that much in a playoff game is tough. Doing it twice, though, man, that says it says a lot. I like Monty. I don't have to work with him, so I don't know if he rubs people the wrong way or not. But clearly, there is a disconnect between him and those players.
They were the 1 seed in the 60-win team last year.
Yeah,
and got beat like that in the playoffs. So I mean, I think he'll bounce back. I think he'll obviously get another job. When maybe this year or whenever he's ready. But The more we talked about it yesterday, the more I thought about it. It's starting to get a little bleak, and I wasn't talking Memphis for the prospect of making an argument for Monty Williams.
Yeah, I think he would be a really great fit in Detroit, like a young athletic team. They haven't gotten a lot of wins. They're not a playoff caliber team, and now you set the culture in terms of how things need to be. I think Detroit has a lot of really fun players that he could help mold and like really build an offense with a ton of motion and getting guys like James Wiseman and Jalen Duren involved. Yeah, I think that's a fit. I don't think going back to a contender, though. Once you get fired from a contender, how do you go back to a contender when they know what your ceiling is?
I actually they don't have a coach right now. I forgot Detroit's still vacant.
Yeah.
Yes. Detroit, Toronto, Phoenix, Milwaukee. And Philly. 5 teams currently got open. If you're Ime Udoka, you got to be pissed because you could have had so many opportunities.
Wait, did we say Toronto?
Yeah.
Is Toronto open? Oh, okay.
Toronto's still open. 5 teams open.
Man, that's a lot. Goodness gracious. All right.
And 4 of those 5 were playoff teams.
A couple of them were title contenders.
Yep.
What? Okay, this is a question for both of you. Will young teams, stop blowing up their depth to land a superstar?
I think that is the key, really the key message over the last 2 years is that if you're top heavy and you have 0 depth, it's just not going to work out for you. It's going to not work out for you as a coach. It's not going to work out for you long-term as an organization. You look messy in terms of how you're thinking about running your business. And the Nets are obviously a prime example of teams that just didn't really learn from their mistakes since they did it multiple times. But yeah, I think OKC is now the model. You need to build slowly. That LA Rams business, yeah, maybe you get 1 ring, but it's really, really a bleak situation once your cupboards are bare and you have that ring in your cabinet, and all the fans are like, "Well, that was a while ago. We need some competition now."
I hear what you're saying. I don't know though. I don't know if I don't know who would be that player right now off the top of my head, but if KD is available, prime KD.
But it's KD now.
Well, no, I'm saying that type of player. I'm saying prime Kevin Durant. If whoever prime Kevin Durant is, if Anthony Edwards becomes available, in 2 years, and OKC is just kind of made the playoffs, and they're cool, and Minnesota says, "Hey, we'll give you Ant-Man for Jalen Williams, Giddey, and 3 picks."
4
picks.
Probably more than 4 now.
You think OKC? Because isn't that what a lot of these guys do? And maybe it changes. This is the question, though. Maybe it changes. Is you accumulate all these talented players to cash in for one of the mega stars. But you have one yourself, you have 1 or 2 yourself, and you use the other assets to get one of the mega stars.
I mean, what we know is that you're not going to win a title without all NBA caliber talent on your team, and probably 2 of those. But we also know that only
Sacramento, 2 all NBA players.
But we also know that you can't win with just those 2 and no one else, where it's Ish Wainwright as your 4th option, right? We see how bad that is. So if Denver wins this title, which they certainly could, and that's an organic build. If Boston wins the title, that's an organic build. And that organic build from Boston was built off of the folly and the mistakes of a team like Brooklyn. Not like Brooklyn, actually Brooklyn. So if you're a smart GM, you're looking at history and saying, what does it take to get us a title? Not just put butts in the seats. And that is having depth and making sure that when you have a star, that star has surrounding talent around them in order for them to succeed through the gauntlet that is the playoffs.
Unless, of course, you're in fact the Brooklyn Nets, then you just make the same exact mistake again a decade later.
Correct. Yeah.
No,
it's
the
exactly.
second one is defensible. The first one was atrocious.
Oh, so bad.
It was atrocious.
So bad.
Mm.
Okay. Our dubs. Oh, I know.
I'm so sad. It's sad. It's so bad. It's horrible.
She says with an ear-to-ear grin.
I hate that our dubs went out like the Golden State Invitational.
No.
Warriors Invitational.
Warriors Invitational.
No.
It's sickening. I couldn't sleep that night. My heart was racing.
Yep.
I just don't know what to make of it. And you know what? Listen, at the end of the day, between me, you, and the lamppost, like, it worked. You said, Damien, ever since our dubs, they've won another title. Where are we now?
Yep.
Where are we now? We're the death of a dynasty. And it's a shame. It's a damn shame.
So where do you think they go from here? Like, what do they do? Are they moving on from Draymond?
Well, did you see what Steve Kerr just said?
No,
I think he said this today. We are not contending. We're not contending without Draymond Green.
Okay. Look, I'm gonna tell you right now.
I'll say
as a Kings fan, I would love for them to bring everybody back.
Yep.
I would love for bring the band back together again.
Well, the good thing about this band is it's the one on the Titanic where they just kept playing. Like, this bitch is sinking. That's all right. That's my jam. We're going to keep playing.
I think Jordan Poole has a market. I think that they hope that he has a market. What I heard is that they've been trying to move Jordan Poole even at the trade deadline, and they were making calls to try to get rid of him. I don't know how we're going to process this Jordan Poole punch in like a decade, but I feel like there's going to be more stuff that comes out around it that gives it more color and context. And you see, if it's Jordan Poole or Draymond, very clearly lines have been drawn. Sorry, Jordan Poole, like, you are not as important to this organization contending than Draymond. I don't know if you guys saw what Steph said, where they asked him like about the two timelines and who was the most important, and he pointed at Jordan's locker. And it's like, sorry, Steph, that locker is getting cleared out soon. I think they need more depth. It's exactly what we were just talking about in terms of depth. You can't just have Klay Thompson going 1 for 9 and Jordan Poole 0 points and like young guys complaining about how many minutes they have. The two timeline things clearly is not something that you can say was like a massive success.
Oh, it was a failure.
Or
they failed miserably.
Or a small success.
Or even, well, they would say that Kuminga was very important to their last championship, and that Jordan Poole was as well. So that's why I can't say it wasn't successful at all, because those guys played roles. GP2, even though he's $1 million, he was a part of the second timeline, I think.
Yeah, but the timeline would, I guess, is maybe, if it's not a failure, it's the shortest timeline of all time because it's done. You're trying to get Poole out of here.
It's like a second blip.
Yeah, you're trying to get Poole out of here. Kuminga made one out. You already traded Wiseman. You barely played Moody for whatever reason. That thing is a mess. But when I say, and anybody says death in the dynasty, I think when you talk about,
should be Marcus Thompson's next book, by the way.
Should be
Death of a
Can't
Dynasty.
wait for it.
So
the punch heard and seen all around the world.
Yeah. I look at that as, I think that's the end of their championship years. I don't see them winning a championship with this group or anything close to it again. But I still think they'll be a good team. I think they're still a playoff team. I think it's a team that'll be, 4, 5, 6 seed in the playoffs and maybe win a round or two. But that's about it.
Mm.
Do you even see that?
Yeah, I do. I think as long as they have Steph Curry, that's just, anything can happen. That's very clear. I'm really curious to see what happens with Klay and how much money he ends up getting. I've said this on this show a bajillion times. I think the amount of money that Klay got while he was just rehabbing his multiple injuries one of which happened in a like non-regulated or sanctioned like non-team scrimmage where he tore up his Achilles. Like, I think that those 2 years where he was making 40+ million sort of like are the basis of the conversation of him taking less now, where it's like, we were supportive of you and we continue to give you the max, like literally post ACL tear. We offered you a 5-year max. We did that as like a gesture of goodwill, and we appreciate you. Now that appreciation kind of has to come back our way.
But how much does Jordan Poole's contract play into that?
I think a lot.
Like, you gonna pay him more than me?
And the answer is like, we see him as a trade piece that we can get something back for. We don't see that in you. You're going to retire a Warrior. If we give you that much money, you're just an expensive house on the market that we can flip to some dummy.
Is it out of pocket to say that Jordan Poole would be not only better, but potentially significantly better if Klay and Draymond Green were gone?
Ooh, significantly better if for his own role, I would say.
By the way, he did average like 20 points per game this year.
For the whole season, and he's like 25 a night when he starts.
Yeah, so I would say his personal production probably better without Klay. But does that affect the team in a way where he's making winning plays on the defensive side of the ball? I think there's been like montages created about with him just getting cooked 13 straight times on defense in pick and roll situations. So I think that hurts the team, you know? I don't know that a guy like
hurts the team more than keeping Draymond Green around?
I don't know.
Just because he's good at defense?
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, and Steph loves Draymond.
Well, that's Lakers series.
That's the thing.
Whenever AD decided to play, I mean, they had no answer. I know it's AD, but like he's not stopping everybody on. When you get to the playoffs, you're gonna face the ADs, the Jokic. He ain't stopping everybody in the playoffs. So, what good does it do to pay him all that money if he's that good on defense? If it's not the same, if it's not as beneficial as it would be moving him for somebody like Jordan Poole?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it comes down to the personal relationship with Steph and the fact that he's been a part of all the championships, right? You can say the common denominator is Klay, Steph, and Draymond. We can say Jordan Poole, no Jordan Poole. We're not sure if you added in like another comparable 2 guard that could get you 20 a night, whether we could have won the championship last year, our Dubs, but I think you could say there were many championships that would not have been won without Draymond Green, especially when he was scoring.
There's only
one.
There's only one.
2015.
Yeah, 2015.
The rest of them.
Yeah, the rest are KD related.
And the other, but the thing that I also say, Trysta, do we have to go?
No.
Okay.
I was serious. We're just going to keep talking.
The other thing I would say about this Warriors thing, and I don't mean this as a slight or, I'm having fun, dance on the grave. I'm not like, this is just really talking hoop. To me, the whole thing has always been about Steph and Klay and having 2 of the 5 best shooters to ever play, creating all this gravity and all this chaos and all this hysteria for other teams every single night. That's what it's always been about. And you could get another really good 2 guard in there, but it's not Klay Thompson. You can get another really good point guard in there, but it's not Steph Curry. And now that Klay isn't Klay, like, you can put Jordan Poole there. That's not championship no more. You could have put CJ McCollum with Steph Curry. That would have been really, really good. It's not championship. It's always been about Steph. It was always when Jerry West, when they were talking about Kevin Love, and he said, do not touch Steph and Klay ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been about those 2. And now that those 2 aren't, I mean, Steph is still doing his thing, but Klay is clearly not the same. Plus, you have the whole defensive component where Klay could guard the best guard and all this other stuff. And now that that's gone, I think that signifies the end of the championship window.
I love that they asked after the King series, they asked Steph Curry, who can stop Steph Curry? And he said, I hope we never find out. And now we know that the answer is Jared Vanderbilt.
Speaking of Jared Vanderbilt, KC's got the Nuggets in 5.
Wow, really?
Yeah, man.
What do you think about the Western Conference Finals that get underway tonight?
I think the real like sort of defining player, of course, and this is going to sound like so obvious, is going to be Anthony Davis, and whether the Nuggets are going to be able to pull him away from the basket, and that's going to affect, the defense for the Lakers, and how those matchups are going to be, right? Like who is on who. And to me, it feels like whether Anthony Davis is as dominant and as locked in and as motivated as a primary scorer and a guy who can get you 3-4 blocks a game, like if he can be that version of himself, then it could go 7. But if he's wishy-washy, up and down, I mean, we saw what Jokic did to Phoenix, right? Phoenix was a good team. When they were operating on full cylinders, no matter how little depth they had, they still had Kevin Durant who could go off for 40 and Devin Booker who could go up for 40 at any time. And they dismantled Phoenix. They put them in a suitcase and clapped them up. And compared to what Embiid did in his own playoff run, it's just like night and day. So I think it's really going to come down to AD and the others. Are you going to get exactly what you got from the Lakers and the Warriors series, where it was like, you don't know who the role player is that's going to show out, but you know that one or two will? That depth that the Lakers acquired at the trade deadline is, I would say, not 100% on par, but very close to on par in terms of what we've already seen from them as the Nuggets role players have. Yeah. Which is crazy.
I like the Lakers in this series more than I like the Nuggets. I thought the Nuggets in 5 was crazy, but
I think
basketball, and I'm just a casual.
Not always right, just mostly right. But
what do you think is the reason for it, though? Like, explain why you think the Nuggets could or will dismantle the Lakers in 5.
Well, it comes down to, Jokic is probably the best player in the playoffs right now. The Nuggets have been the best team in the playoffs this year. And really, I was going to say my X factor with saying that, and I guess I'm banking on this happening, is if we have, and he has Anthony Davis tendencies, but if we have top flight Jamal Murray, I think the combination of Jamal Murray and Jokic and what they open up for guys like Bruce Brown and Michael Porter Jr. and even KCP and even like Ryan Brown, or ain't that his name? Ryan Brown? Is it?
Christian Braun.
Christian Brown.
Christian Brown. Yeah, Christian Brown.
Yeah. I like what he brings off the bench.
To be clear, though, when you say Anthony Davis tendencies for Jamal Murray, you mean in and out.
Yeah. Sometimes he's not,
Sometimes he's just not there.
Dropping 40, sometimes he's dropping 17. So
that's why our averages are averages.
Right. So I just think if Murray shows up, which is what I'm banking on, I think it'll be too much for the Lakers. I thought the Lakers almost like the Warriors getting out of the Kings series. I think the Lakers, I'm not going to say they emptied the tank, but I
don't agree with that at all.
They did a lot to get out of those 2 series.
I think what the Lakers did show, though, is their vulnerabilities that the Warriors just simply did not keep the boot on their neck and continued to exploit. They allowed the Lakers to get life, and then once they got life, and guys like Lonnie Walker or Rui Hachimura or whatever role player, on whatever given night it was, came back into the fray, then the Warriors almost like folded. They did not rise to the occasion of the Lakers run. So I don't think they ran out of steam. I don't think the tank is empty by any means. It's going to be really interesting to see who guards Jamal Murray on this Laker team. Like, is that Jared Vanderbilt? Is LeBron guarding Jokic?
The Vanderbilt thing is crazy though, because I think that's one thing the Warriors were able to show is like, we just won't guard him.
Yeah.
Like, we won't guard him. And then he couldn't be played. So I think that's where Schroeder comes into play.
Yeah.
I think he'll be on Murray. But Murray is also a little different than Steph Curry. Not to saying he's better, but his game is different, where physically Jamal Murray might take advantage Schroeder, who's a little smaller. And that may be a bit of an issue. So I think they'll start with Vanderbilt, but if he can't hit a shot or two, he might find himself in the same situation.
Any thoughts on the East and Tatum's superhero performance at the end of Game 6, and then just sending Doc Rivers to the unemployment line, and I guess James Harden to Houston, and Joel Embiid into his feelings, and just.
Yeah, I think the thing that really was incredible to me, the thing that sticks out the most, is just those like watershed, like sliding glass door moments, because Tatum goes 1 for 13. Say he doesn't have those last 4 minutes that he has. Say that our lasting impression is Boston going home because Jason Tatum went 1 for 17 from the floor, and it was just this anticlimactic thing. Then, like, who is Tatum to us? Is he any different than he is right now because of what we've seen now that he's capable of? Not in just in those 4 minutes, but in the game we would have never seen.
Yep.
So that 4-minute span was like a legacy 4 minutes. He saw one basket go in. I saw it from the corner, and I said it out loud. Just got to see one go in. And I don't think he missed the rest of those 4 minutes. Step back, hezzy to the right, step back to the left, like just waterfall on the Sixers to the point they had no ability to even come back. Like, you look up and you're like, dang, Boston's up 12 now? So that's what really was sticking out in my mind is, what would we be saying about Jason Tatum right now? That's the lasting taste in our mouth.
A lot like what we were saying about Phoenix, because Phoenix's last 2 elimination games they lost by a combined 55 points.
Hey.
If the scenario plays out like you were talking about, Game 6, the Celtics are eliminated. Remember Tatum last where were they? NBA Finals?
Yep.
He was terrible. He was terrible. He would be eviscerated. He would be, he can't Tatum, he can't rely on him late. Can't perform in the clutch. He starts to get the James Harden rep.
Ain't nobody getting that. Ain't nobody getting that. He's a one of one.
He starts to get the James Harden rep.
And you start to wonder, like, and I'm not saying I would necessarily believe this. However, I do think in the NBA Twitter chatter hype machine that is created, where it's like, well, like, is Jaylen Brown the guy that you want with the ball in his hand at the end of games in the playoffs? Or is it Jason Tatum? Like,
I want Iguodala.
Yeah. Is like, and we were asking, I think it was Keith Smith, how did we get to this place where Jaylen Brown really is like 1B and like quite a bit below Jason Tatum in terms of like, give me the ball hierarchy? And it comes from, how JB was drafted and where he came up through the bench, and like his role sort of was growing through the concept of multiple injuries to Kyrie and Gordon Hayward, where Tatum was sort of anointed from the beginning. He's been 19 for like 6 years, and we've been like, he's only 19. So there's this hierarchy that's been created where maybe the hierarchy starts to get questioned. Maybe we start wondering, like, JB was much better in that final series against the Warriors. JB was much better than JT in the conference semis against the Sixers. So, like, maybe JB's the guy and Jason Tatum is not.
And this is what I always say about that is one of the reasons why maybe you see those type of things is because teams plan to stop Jason Tatum. Not saying they don't care about Jaylen Brown, but their focus is they're putting their best defender on Jason Tatum. Like they're not putting their second or third best defender on Tatum and putting the best defender on Brown. They're putting it on Tatum. You know what I mean? And that's why. And that's no knock on Jaylen Brown. I love him, but there's a reason why Tatum is number one. There's a reason why he's got a tougher task in front of him more times than not, because he's that guy. He's the one. And Jaylen Brown is a great ball player, all NBA, one of the great ball players in the league. That's why Boston is so good. But I always say, make no mistake about it, Team comes into the series, they're putting their best defender and their center and their defense around trying to slow down and stop Jason Tatum, not Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, with all that being said, I think Celtics win, but
easy work. Before we leave, Trysta, because Trysta's been amazing with her time today. Ja Morant get 50 games, 40 games, 30 games?
Here's what I'll say about that. Such a great question. I think when you hand down an egregiously light suspension for episode 1, well, I wouldn't even say that it's episode 1, right? It's really like episode 5, because the NBA has been investigating Ja Morant, and Adrian Wojnarowski said this on ESPN yesterday, that the NBA, the league, has been investigating Ja for multiple different incidents, looking into what happened to that incident with the 17-year-old kid that he fought, the incident at the mall with his mom, the incident with the Indiana Pacers traveling facility, the incident with, there was another one, I forget it, what was going on there. Oh, the volleyball game where he threatened the gun. So there's been like 4 other things that the NBA has like their task force like working on, which they're putting resources into. And then the Ja thing comes down with the shotgun Willies, and Adam Silver meets with Ja. He's aware of obviously these investigations, and says, listen, I'm going to give you a slap on the wrist, but this stuff can't happen again. Because if it happens again, now I have to give you the full letter of the law. I've got to give you both barrels, no pun intended, because now I have to make an example out of you, because the rest of these owners are going to think I'm like soft on this, and they're going to think their bottom line is being affected, and I can't be out here embarrassed. So it would not surprise me if Ja's second offense for conduct detrimental to the league, not just the Grizzlies, is something very strong to send a message to Ja, to send a message to other people that we're not playing around with you guys playing around with guns.
Yeah, I'm with you. I absolutely think that's the case. Trysta, we appreciate you. The Heat Check Podcast, BetMGM